Hey, listeners, welcome to this episode of Nahatica's CWN podcast. I am joined today by the Credentialing Support Partnership, and you may have heard the first episode about this program, but we have some new information and a newcomer, Miss Erin, to introduce. And I am going to turn it over to the experts and the curators and professionals in the program. So we have Erin, Heather, and Nick. Each of you can introduce yourselves and just let the listeners know who you are in the program, and then we will get an overview of what's going on with the program right now, what it is, and what it's up to. So go ahead, rock, paper, scissors. Who's going first?
I can go first since I'm the most ambitious. So, my name is Nick Pfeiffer. I'm one of the clinical supervisors in the credentialing support partnership program here at Nahatica. I have been in the program since February of last year, so February 2023, pretty much when the program started. I've been in the field of substance use in co-occurring disorders and mental health for about 28 years now, all around the state and in various positions. So thank you for having us, Heather.
Absolutely. Thank you for all you have done and all you are continuing to do for the state. Thank you. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Smith. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor and master's licensed alcohol and drug counselor, as well as a registered dance movement therapist. And with our CSP program, I am one of the other clinical supervisors. And I have been working within New Hampshire in the field of substance use disorder treatments for about 15 years now. And I have been supervising individuals for both the mental health board and the alcohol and drug licensing board for about 5 to 6 of those years. And I just find it just so inviting and so much excitement from helping individuals find their niche in the licensing and alcohol drug counseling field. And that's why I am here and what I want to provide with this program.
Excellent. We're so glad you're here and everything that you've been up to over these years. Thank you, Heather. Erin. Erin is the most magnificent addition to this team. Erin, please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Heather. My name is Erin Maisry, and I am the credentialing program coordinator here. So I joined back in November of last year, and really have enjoyed working with Nick and Heather to help people get credentialed. I had my CRSW, and I worked in the substance use disorder field for 5 years. Part of my last position was helping people get their CRSW and supervising them. So stepping into this role and being able to work with people to get their LADAC and MLADAC is definitely, I love it. So
Yeah, such a just it's a need across the board for workforce, but it's also the way that each of you have your individual passion for those getting licensed and credentialed. It's authentic, and I haven't met anyone that hasn't met with one of you individually and hasn't come out with a positive experience. It's really good to hear the feedback. So, what if I don't know, what is the credentialing support partnership?
Erin, do you want
Good
to take that one?
I'll
question
go
of
ahead
why
and
we're here
start.
today. Yes.
So basically, right now we're funded through SAMHSA, and it's, because of the shortage of professionals in this field, it's to help people get licensed, working with them to get supervision. We offer test preparation. We do continuing education opportunities here. We have access to a couple different resources and stuff like that. So, but one of the main things of my position is helping people to understand the process of getting licensed. So people can come in and bring in whatever paperwork they have. I can go through it with them to make sure that everything's ready to submit to the licensing board. And if not, help them figure out what is still needed. So, that's a little bit of what I do. And then Nick and Heather do provide the clinical supervision. They can speak more about that. Yeah.
It's such a gift because it's free, first of all, to get all of the support, which is huge. And the prep, I know when I was coming out of my master's program and getting ready for licensure, the prep for the test or the understanding of licensing was, they didn't have a course in the college program, in the master's program to talk about that, which you don't know until you're graduated and you're trying to go do the stuff. So
Exactly.
yeah.
I remember that process as clear as day. And I remember my graduate courses and stuff. And I remember being told by the professors is that, hey, you need to just look at your licensing board information and go from there. We have the curriculum and courses set up here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that, once you graduate with this degree, it's going to match whatever your state that you want to be licensed in is going to ask of you. So I do remember that guidance, but after that, that's about it. It was, finding it, I felt like on my own and just looking at all the laws and rules and trying to decipher what does this mean? And thank goodness I had a little bit of like student government background in my experience, but I know that that's not the case for a lot of others. And so that's, yeah, definitely a great asset to what we all do in this program is helping individuals decipher that information.
Yeah.
I was going to say that same thing, Heather, and thank you for pointing it out, right? Is that, yeah, all of these licensed, or, certified professions, that, are really dictated by administrative rules and state law. And it can be hard to figure out sometimes, certainly, having a government background or being able to understand processes and how it works, I think can be helpful. But I think one of the things that I find when I talk to people is just that they get really confused and it can become very overwhelming very, very quickly when you're trying to figure out all the different pieces and all of the different steps that you need to take in order to ensure that those pieces are in place and are sort of taken care of before you can actually apply. And so I've said it to certainly my coworkers here, but lots of other people that I too wish that there was something like this that existed because it was sort of, I hope I got it right. I'm going to send it in and I'll keep my fingers crossed that everything goes okay. So I'm excited that we have this program to support people to feel a little bit more confident, I think, and knowledgeable about what they need to do in order to get credentialed and sort of support them to figure out what's the most appropriate credential that you can get for what you want to do as well.
And I think the other value of it is that it may keep people from, or it actually may lead people to licensure and credentialing where they might not have before, because you do get lost in the weeds. And how many stories have we heard when people said that they had stuff sent back and there wasn't enough documentation or this wasn't signed and then they stopped the process because it is highly frustrating. So yeah, super valuable support you give. Aaron, what do you find to be some of the biggest questions and concerns coming from people inquiring about the program and then what they're dealing with?
Well, one question I get asked a lot is how much is it? And it's free, all of it. So, which is really nice. But a lot of it is asking, what are the educational requirements to get the LADAC, MLADAC? I would say that's probably the number one question that I get. And then deciphering the ALC rules, the ALC rules, which is a challenge in itself if you're not familiar with it. So, I know Nick, Heather, and myself have definitely reviewed it quite a few times. I get a lot of questions about that. Also when it comes to renewal, what the requirements are. So I always say anybody that has any questions, like feel free to call or email me. And if we don't know the answer, we'll find out the answer. So yeah.
Yeah, I will have all of your contact information in the program, contact information in the show notes for certain. You do not realize the amount of questions you're going to have until you start the process. Right, right. So I've come to you. We've got all my paperwork together. I've submitted for licensure. And what do I have to do before licensure to make sure that my hours are going to count as far as supervision goes? Nick or Heather, could you speak to that?
I
What that
can
looks like
I
in
can
your
speak to it. Yeah,
relationship?
no, that's fine. So first and foremost, and I think a lot of people aren't even aware, despite a rule that changed last year, is specific to the supervision agreement. Historically, many moons ago, up until last March, a supervision agreement was submitted when somebody submitted their completed application at the end of the process. That has shifted. That's probably one of the more significant changes that has happened, is that before supervision can begin, a candidate and the supervisor, the approved supervisor, must file that supervision agreement with the licensing board through OPLC. I think that that's one, and Heather, certainly feel free to jump in. But I think that's one of the ones that I've heard a lot of is, oh, no, I never did that, or I didn't know that I had to do it. And I think for a while, and certainly I'm not on the board, but I think the board was relatively flexible for quite some time. But we're also talking about that rule being in place for well over a year now. And I do think that the licensing board has, really sort of tightened down on that one. So that's one of the biggest ones I think for people to really pay attention to, is to really ensure that you've got that filed with the licensing board and through OPLC. If you're not sure, they do send you confirmation once they do receive that, and they do have that in the file. They'll let you know, and then you can certainly move forward with your supervision. But that's the biggest one that I would try to remind people of, or point out to people about, is that that's really, really a big piece. And I think it's unfortunate that we've talked to a lot of people that have lost quite a few supervision hours because they did not file that agreement with the licensing board when they started the supervision. So that's one of the bigger pieces. I would say, what else do you need to do up front? That's the number one, and I think certainly folks reviewing and trying to understand the administrative rules. Aaron had mentioned the ALC 300 rules, which really does outline everything you need to do and all the requirements that you need to meet in order to be eligible for a CRSW, a LADAC, or an MLADAC as well. So, but though that's probably the number one thing that pops to my mind that I would sort of inform people or educate people about right up front in the beginning.
And I think that's the beauty of the program, because we don't know what we don't know. And why spend so many hours combing through something that we already have a difficulty understanding, when we can call Aaron and get, or either of you, and get some questions answered? And I think what you just spoke to is a barrier to going forward for licensure. Because if I've put in 100 and some odd hours plus, right? And then and I can't count those, that's super frustrating. Absolutely. So
Yeah,
thank you
it's heartbreaking. It's definitely heartbreaking to sort of hear when those types of things happen to people.
yeah.
And again, you had mentioned sometimes you don't know what you don't know until you end up brushing up against it and coming up against it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will piggyback on that and say one of the other items, like secondary to that, I think that was probably the primary thing that I would have said first, but secondary for people to really make sure they have is the appropriate qualifying degree. That I will say, in this position, have come across several individuals that did not have an eligible degree offhand of what's asked of them in the rules. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't be able to utilize that. There's just an extra hurdle, an extra step that they do have to prove equivalency. But, that is heartbreaking. Someone who has been in the process, had an approved supervisor, had the, thought that I'm going forward, I'm gathering all these hours and so forth. And then, somewhere have that question of like, let me check in and like see if I, have all this together. And then when they ask us that question, to deliver that news is that to me has been another heartbreaking piece of information. So for listeners, I would just say make sure that your degree, your graduate or undergrad degree, is something that qualifies.
So I could call you before I even apply to a program and find out what I should be looking for when I apply to a program.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would say the flip side too, because we have other like individuals who just didn't know that their degree could qualify. So, I would definitely say the flip side of that too is if you're even having some inkling of wanting to get in the field, we are here to answer those questions and to guide you in, the direction of making sure you enter into that coursework that is going to qualify you.
Nice. Excellent. Yeah, I could be sitting on a master's degree that I could be doing, or even an undergrad degree where I could be doing this work, but I don't know what I don't
Mhm.
know. So people call. I
Exactly.
feel like we should do a telethon hotline. Call and ask your questions now.
For
Aaron,
sure, for sure. And something that's eligible, and just put it that out there since we're on the topic, for the LADAC, you can have an associate's or a bachelor's in certain coursework. So that's something to recognize. People don't know that they can get credentialed as a LADAC with an associate's, with an eligible associate's degree. So that's exciting for some folks to hear that and know that.
mm, and maybe if you have a master's level degree in something else like clinical mental health and you want the master alcohol and drug counselor credential, being able to go over and do that with our scope of practice having changed also is pretty amazing. Um,
Yes, yes, and that both boards identify if you have a license in one or the other, they will give you a chunk of your supervised work experience time to you and acknowledge that hey, you have a license in this side, master level license on this side. Then we will count that as X amount of work experience for your credential as a master level licensed clinician on the other side. So mental health practice board and the alcohol and drug practice board both recognize that on both sides.
which is huge. If anybody's been in
Hmm.
this for more than 20 years, that's huge. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Wow. Aaron, for you, you're doing a lot of behind the scenes. Not that you're not all working together, but your piece is a little bit different in the program. Can you speak more about some of the things that you're up to?
So some of the other things that I do here that may or may not interest some people is going to the legislature for the House and Senate bill meetings that with new bills that come up that pertain to substance use disorder. So some of them could have a big impact on licensure or a variety of things. I do also attend the monthly OPLC board meeting for the LADAC, or I'm sorry, for the alcohol and drug use specifically. And I've worked, Nick and Heather have as well, but we've worked together with the board to try to help people that are having some challenges getting licensed, or maybe present some things that maybe I've received contact from somebody that they're having difficulties getting answers or whatever the case might be. We can contact the board directly, and they may not give us all the information because of confidentiality, but we can try and help things along in some aspects. So that's been kind of nice. And but yeah, I'd say the majority of, what I'm doing is really trying to go through everything that any participant might need, just general questions. I love it when people bring in their stack of papers and we go through it together, and I love being able to tell them you're ready to submit this, which is really exciting. And yeah, it's great to see that. And if, like I said, if they are missing things, being able to give them exactly what it is that they need. It could be a training, or it could be just, a piece of paper that they still need to fill out. So it can be a variety of things with that, but yeah.
Hmm. That's so neat. I love the idea around you can have all your stuff, bring it to you and sit. It's like you're like a magical CPA going through all my receipts and making it make sense. Yeah, and you have frontline information. You have the latest and greatest updated information, which I think is another valuable piece, because sometimes you might call the board, not the board, but OPLC, and they have information, but you do too. So getting to you is easier, it seems. Yeah.
I
Okay.
would say, I would certainly say that that's one thing, that is advantageous about the program, with the participants that we work with that are working towards credentialing. But I would also say, I think we get a lot of inquiries from supervisors, from clinical directors, from, other individuals within the agency that just don't know that there have been rule changes, or they don't know that the RSA was updated, or they're just not aware. And so I think I would say we've been a good resource for agencies overall, I think, to better understand where do things lie, what do I need to do in my agency or with my clinical staff in order to ensure that we are following the most up-to-date and recently approved rules, or we do have an idea of how we need to structure some of these things based on changes with training requirements, or changes based on supervision requirements, or some of those things as well. And so I think, yes, it's great as a candidate to be able to have all of this at your disposal. But I like that we've got all of this at the disposal of agencies and those that are in those leadership positions within organizations and agencies, in order to support them, to make sure that they know what they need to know as well, so that they're in compliance and are able to also disseminate that information to candidates that they're supervising and that they're directly working with, that may not even become a part of our program.
Speak to that further around this. Also seems, if we're talking, because the Clinician Wellbeing Network is doing this podcast, if I'm talking about workload, if I'm talking about burnout, if I'm talking about lack of, shortage in workforce, as a leader, this does seem like a beautiful gift and kind of taking some of those things off my plate. How would you describe it to leadership to have them understand and buy in to the value of this?
No, that's a great point. So there have been a number of organizations that we've worked with that we've gone and spoken about our program, or that we've had multiple individuals from a specific agency sort of reach out and demonstrate their interest. And I think both Aaron, Heather, and myself, are always open to talking to leadership, so that they do have a better understanding of our program. And yeah, while the focus is how do we support people to get licensed or to get certified, or whatever that might be, that's a really good point, Heather, in the sense that, yeah, we're also here to potentially really take a lot of weight off of, clinical supervisors or clinical directors that we know are already spread so thin, that it can be challenging for them within the organization. I can certainly speak from my own experience, that you bounce from meeting to meeting, and you bounce from supervision session to supervision session, and it can become very, very overwhelming sometimes. And so, yeah, we're here to support those organizations, by providing those pieces that they would find helpful, and whether that's direct and indirect clinical supervision from Heather or myself, to remove that load, whether it is sort of supporting them with our test prep course, as they get ready to take the exam for a LADAC or MLADAC, type of a licensure, and so Heather and I sort of talked about it for a long time, and Aaron has also been very creative, that we try to sort of custom tailor what the needs are for the folks that
Right.
we work with. And we certainly did this podcast almost a year ago, I think, at this point. And we've actually even evolved and expanded a little bit to specify that we used to just have, here's the bundle that we have to offer, including supervision or trainings, or these other pieces. And we've since then sort of evolved that we actually have two different tracks now. One that involves involves the supervision with with Heather and myself, in addition to all the other pieces. Or if you don't even need supervision, we can still offer you all of these other pieces that we have,
Yes.
And so I think that a lot of the supervisors or directors that I've talked to that we're working with, I think have found that to be extremely helpful. That no, they weren't aware of some of the changes that happened with an administrative rule, but they were able to direct their supervisee to us, or they reached out to us, and we can answer those questions and we can fill in some of those blanks that they have, to make it easier for them to do their job.
Mm,
In all honesty, again, working in an agency, being pushed for time, to sit down and to try to review the ALC 300 rules to figure out what's changed from the last time to this time and what do I need to make sure I'm doing can be very time consuming. And so, I think the program, again, in addition to all that direct work that we do with individuals, yeah, that there's a lot of supervisors or directors that I get emails from time to time, that
mm,
I'm able to support them, or an email to say, I got two new staff that need supervision. I don't have the bandwidth. Can I send them your way? Absolutely, you can send them our way.
mm,
And in doing that, we also ensure to maintain confidentiality, from the organization with having appropriate documentation of business associate agreements or quality service organization agreements, appropriate documentation with memorandum of understandings, and, making sure that we have all of those pieces in place so the agencies, again, don't have to respond to say, oh, let me figure out what paperwork we need to get in place, or let me figure out how we're going to overcome, this part or that part. That the way that we've designed this program really is a support that you don't even have to worry about that piece. I'm more than happy to share what we have with you, and we can sort of work from there. So yes, it's everywhere from the
Mhm.
individual who just says, I think I want to get involved in this profession. What do I need to do? To, leadership, executive leadership at organizations to remove a burden and to try to support them with the aid of our program as well.
mm. You can't
And
you can't buy that
also,
because it. No, go ahead.
right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wanted to also put in there another benefit for clinical supervisors that we have. Nick and I lead a peer collaboration that is once a month, and that's also another free service that we provide too. And that's been really great to just collaborate with other clinical supervisors specifically, and talk about some of those topics that Nick has just presented.
That's valuable because in leadership, you can't always get that collaboration within your agency comfortably, easily, schedules, whatever else. So, and there's peer collaboration for those who are licensed. There's peer collaboration through NAHATICA for leadership. There's several different collabs. So the fact that that is specific to what you guys offer is thank you. Thank you for doing that. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you buy now, it's still free. So these services, what you could charge. I mean, Nick, you're a former consultant or still are doing it possibly. And the money that could be charged out for this is it's just an amazing value. Aaron, where is the program going? You're working with Samson, some other places. So where are we going? I'm in on it
Well, I
now.
think that, since this program was started, we've seen a lot of needs that, anybody working in substance use disorder in the field has, a variety of other things that we may not be currently doing. But so we are looking into some other options, hopefully starting next year, I think. I don't want to give too much away just in case it doesn't work out, but we are definitely looking into other options. Yeah, so I think, as they say, more will be revealed down the road. But yeah.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We'll have
Yeah.
to just keep having episodes. Um, for each of you, what has been the most rewarding part of doing this work? And I'll let you start, Aaron, right where you left
Oh
off.
gosh. Yeah, definitely helping people with their packet and when they realize that they're close to or ready to submit it. But I also love it when people email me and let me know that they passed their the exam or that, they got their license, things like that. So it's really wonderful to be able to know that, any little bit that we're doing to help them, it's really truly wonderful to see that.
Mm, absolutely. How about for you, Heather?
I think it's been to see the supervisees grow. So, working with them from start to now and just seeing them light up and just, know that like they feel like they're in the right field, like this is where they want to be, and just, helping support that for them and continuing to nurture that for them and guide them. I think that has been the most rewarding. And just to again to see the joy that individuals have when they realize this is doable, to obtain their licensure. This is something that they can do, and I just yeah, the continuation of that.
Nice. How about you, Nick?
Well, I would certainly agree with both Aaron and Heather. I think the thing that stands out for me is sort of the sigh of relief I hear from people when they realize that they're not alone in having to try to figure all of this out. I think I've talked to a lot of people that are close to throwing in the towel because they don't know where they can find a supervisor or they don't know, some of these other pieces. And the same thing when I talk to leadership or executive leadership, the same thing, sort of a sigh of relief that sometimes I've even heard I didn't really know about Nahatica. Now is it okay if I call you guys all the time? Yes, absolutely it is. And so I think just sort of that sense of relief when they know that they have somebody that can support them. They have somebody that can sort of guide them down the path that's most appropriate for them, through discussions and through just meeting with them and asking those questions to help them figure out what's going to work best or what's the best route for somebody to go. But just the sense of relief, and maybe for me that's something that stands out because I didn't have the relief when I went through it. I had the anxiety. I had the the worry that I carried around, just wondering if I was doing it right or if I was actually going to get it. So for me, it's just sort of that just the size that I hear when people realize that, okay, this is actually doable, just like what Heather was mentioning.
Mm, right. And Hattica's becoming a one-stop shop where you can get your
Yeah.
trainings and your CEUs and your all the things. I love it. Um, any other thoughts on the program? What you really, if people are listening but they're not paying attention and now they're paying attention, what's the one thing you want them to leave with?
Contact us
I,
with any questions you have. Yeah.
I just want to, I don't think we described the different tracks. And just in brief, just to
Yes.
know that you don't need to have clinical supervision from us to be a participant in the program. That's why we have a track for that, and we have a track for engagements, folks. So that if you already have, approved supervision on site and you want to continue with that, that's great. And that we can be there and provide the other benefits of the engagement side to support any of those other benefits of the program, like test prep or application, filling that out, or going through the rules, making sure all that's there. And then just a little disclaimer is that you can have more than one clinical supervisor. So that is something so that people can understand. If you're getting some needs met and need other areas met with clinical supervision, that is another asset too.
Mm, nice. Nick?
I think for me, and it was kind of what I was speaking to a little bit more is that, I think we have a lot of individuals that are connecting with us and a lot of individuals that we have reaching out. Certainly, yes, we've had larger discussions with a number of organizations or agencies, but I think the thing to me is that this isn't just something for somebody who's looking to get licensed. you know, that as I was speaking to, we're here to support organizations. We're here to support leadership, executive leadership, you know, those that, you know, aren't necessarily on the front lines with clients every day, but that we do have the capacity to support organizations figure some of these things out, and whether that's how they do it internally or how can they sort of partner up, you know, with the credentialing support partnership to better support their staff and their employees, you know, through this process. So, you know, I think that's one thing that's changed for me over time is when we started, we were so focused on the people, let's find the people that need this. And I think we've really found that agencies and organizations need this as well. And so I think that's one piece that maybe doesn't necessarily get out there enough, that there's such a broad spectrum of individuals or groups of individuals that we can support in the program.
Mm. And that speaks to well-being for all agencies, for
Mm.
the profession, bottom up, top, bottom, all the. If I am a leader and I am congruent with the needs of my staff or whatever it is, and you've done heavy lifting for people. This program does a lot of heavy lifting that, like you said before, Nick, if I don't have to do that, then I can go do something else. I can go get some ice cream cones for my staff or whatever, right? It's silly, but it's true. What would happen if there was an hour freed up in the day? How would I
Exactly.
present in my leadership differently? Um,
Yeah, I think even looking back at my experiences, you know, in leadership types of positions, it was I didn't have a chance for self-care until I got home at night, and then I was too tired for self-care.
Yeah,
You know, and so it's how do we all try to, you know, I think be mindful of that throughout our day, you know, and I think at least for me throughout my career. And so, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that that's part of it, right? How do we reduce stress in the credentialing process? How do we
mm,
reduce stress with, you know, making sure that, you know, whoever supervisee gets the amount of time that they need in order to not just maintain that license, but also receive quality supervision, as opposed to, hurry up, Heather, let's do this. You're my fifth one today, and I got a bunch of other things I've got to do, you know. So, yeah, I definitely think that it does sort of enhance that wellness with individuals and with larger systems, if individuals or those systems are willing to take advantage of it.
absolutely. This program has an amazing ripple effect to the profession in general. So New Hampshire is lucky to have the three of you working so hard on this.
mm.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate what you're doing. Anything else that we've missed that you want people to know about the program?
Not that pops out to
What
me.
did we mention? Most majority of it's virtual, so we can meet the needs anywhere, anytime. So I guess that I don't know if that came up. I know we're doing this as a virtual setting, and so that's why I went over our head. But that's another great, I think, advantage to it as well is that you know, we are a small state, but you know, rural, and you know, there's you know areas of the state that you know need our support, and we can meet those needs in those areas of the state that might not otherwise have that ability. So yes, this is mostly virtual.
I thank you. That's so
Mm.
true. North Country, so even though we are a small state, it can take me an hour and a half to get 20 miles if there's traffic in
Hmm.
certain spots.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, and the peer collaboration is also virtual, correct?
yes.
Yeah. See, that's a huge value. All right. What an honor to sit and know you three and everything you do as professionals, and the passion that you have personally for it. So thank you. And just if there's any questions for the listeners, give Nahatica a call. They'll direct you to the right person. And just thank you again for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather.